Here now, based on my reporting over many years and very intensely over the last couple of weeks, the 7 rules Donald Trump has for making decisions. First thing is he knows who to ask. If you got a national security issue, presidents are going to ask their Secretary of State, they're going to ask their Secretary of Defense, their national security advisor. And Trump does that. He'll talk to the usual people. Some of it's very linear, but some of it's not. Some of it is out of the box. He'll talk to someone in his office, a business leader who's in his office for a meeting on a totally unrelated topic. He'll say to that person, what do you think I should do about Iran? He's famous for asking people at his 2 clubs in New Jersey and Florida, what do you think I should do? 2 clubs in Florida and 1 in New Jersey. People say, well, that's kind of random. Why would he ask some random, waiter or gardener or business leader something where there's not a linear way that they're involved in the decision? And the answer is sometimes it's random, but sometimes Trump has high human intelligence. And he says, well, this business leader knows how to make decisions about business. So I'm going to ask them what they think about this unrelated decision. It's an extremely important trait. He's open-minded about who to ask, and he knows who to ask, even if they're not the person with line authority. Second thing about Trump in terms of making decisions, again, underappreciated, he's a massive student of history. He's also a huge sports fan, which I think a lot of people don't fully appreciate. Huge student of history, knows a lot about it, knew a lot about it before he was president. Since he became president, he's become even more invested in studying past presidents and how they've dealt with the job, including this issue of decision-making. Here he is from a cabinet meeting this week, give you some idea of just how into understanding his predecessors he is. Roll A2, please.
President Polk, he was sort of a real estate guy. He was, people don't realize he was a one-termer, but he was a very good president. But, and I'm not sure I should be doing this, he actually gave us the state of California. He was the one. And then you have Dwight Eisenhower, who was a very underrated president. He built the interstate system, and he was the toughest president, I guess, until we came along, but I don't mind giving up that crown because I don't want to. He was not a Republican, to put it mildly, but he was, he was a 4-termer. He was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Over there is Honest Abe Lincoln, and the Lincoln bedroom's very famous. You remember when Bill Clinton had it and he rented it out to people. Okay. We don't do that. You have John Adams, and it's they were the first occupants of the White House, 1800. And
so the guy can go on and on about every president, and not just in kind of a funny or superficial way. He knows the lessons of the past presidents, and he's learned from them, and it informs his decision making. The clearest example to me is the Forever Wars. He knows that Lyndon Johnson's presidency crashed on the shores of Vietnam. He knows what happened in Afghanistan with his predecessors. He knows what happened in Iraq with George W. Bush. And learning those lessons, understanding past errors made by his predecessors is a huge part of how he makes decisions as president. That requires knowing both what they did and the impact of what they did, and he does. Okay, number 3, Trump rule for decision-making. Make no decision before it's time. People will say, well, Mr. President, you have to decide this by X date, or you previously said you would make this decision by August 1st, so you have to make it by August 1st. Trump runs on his own clock when he's making a decision. When he's got a choice, he feels absolute freedom to reach whatever conclusion he wants to long after the conventional timekeeping would suggest he has to decide. It's an extremely valuable trait. Not everybody can get away with it. Trump can, but knowing that anybody tells him you got to decide this by X, either because of some external deadline or because he set a deadline previously in public or in private, he just doesn't care. He does not make a decision until he absolutely has to, and sometimes not even then. It's an extremely risky thing to do in some cases, but that is a big part of Trump's decision-making that sets him apart from a lot of other leaders, a lot of other previous presidents. All right, number 4, Trump matches the decision to the specific problem, okay? He sometimes will be guided by very simple, simplistic, good versus bad, right versus wrong principles to make a choice. But sometimes he'll say, well, no, on this choice, it's really got to be kind of bloodless. I need data. I need to make a very strategic decision. It all depends on the nature of the facts on the ground for whatever the choice is, whatever decision he has to make, the nature of that decision. Some leaders will say, I'm just always going to say, what's right, what's wrong. right? Some leaders are going to say, well, I'm just going to go on the data. I'm just going to be like Richard Nixon, Henry Kissinger, just a bloodless decision. In studying Trump, what I see is a guy who, again, matches each decision to whatever the specific is, doesn't feel hemmed in by either the simple, a good versus bad, moral, amoral, or I got to decide based on data. It's all situational. Again, I think that's a very realistic and strong way to make decisions as president. Number 5, making the decision about what to do, it's only the first step. Trump focuses way more than most presidents do on execution and implementation of any decision he makes. He knows that the decision's important, but it's only the first thing you got to do. So I'll give you an example. As a candidate, Trump decided after the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, that he was going to go, right? And there were some questions. Should he go? Should he not? He wasn't president. Would he disrupt things there? All the normal things that go into that kind of choice. Trump decides to go. Now, most presidents or presidential candidates, having decided to take a trip like that, they tell the staff and expect the staff to go out and implement it, right? Like, where's he going to go? What are the photo ops going to be? How long will he be there? Trump considers that packed to the decision. It's wedded to the decision to go. So when he decides to go, Trump thinks of everything like it's a movie and he's the star of the movie. So Trump says, okay, we're going to go. Now, what are we going to do there, right? So Trump decides to go to East Palestine, and the trip is widely considered historically now as a huge success. It helped him contrast himself with Joe Biden. It helped him contrast himself with the other Republicans who at the time were challenging him for the nomination. And that was somewhat about the decision to go. You didn't see Joe Biden go right away, and some controversy over that. It's part of why Trump went. We also didn't see other Republican presidential candidates go. So you make the decision to go. But as I said, for Trump, that's just the first step. Look at how effective he was in speaking. This is just one of many things, moments when he was on the ground in East Palestine. But look how effectively this is staged. Look at the folks behind him. Look at what he says. Here's Donald Trump in East Palestine.
To the people of East Palestine and to the nearby communities in Ohio and Pennsylvania, we have told you loud and clear, you are not forgotten. You are not forgotten. We stand with you, we pray for you, and we will stay with you in your fight to help answer and the accountability that you deserve. We'll have that accountability. It'll all be out there very clearly.
All right, I said Palestine. I meant Palestine. I think I said it right once and wrong once. All right, so that's a very well-staged set of remarks. But again, the whole trip was, walking around, being shown things by local officials, talking to voters on the ground. This is a photo op at a fast food place. Like, this is, for Donald Trump, part of the decision. He didn't decide to get arraigned in Georgia when he was indicted. He had to go do it. But he was heavily involved, right, in the decisions about, okay, what am I going to do? What kind of press access am I going to give? What am I going to do with the mugshot on social media? All those things. It's the same as president. When he says, okay, we're gonna change what we're doing on tariffs, or we're gonna bomb Iran, that's the decision. And then the subsequent decisions are all part of how to do it. And again, with a high emphasis on implementation, high emphasis on executing, and of course, the public facing aspects, what he's doing with the media. Speaking of the media, number 6, Trump recognizes that if you make a decision and you just throw it out there, I'm gonna bomb Iran, or I'm gonna do one bill, not two, that the press then will take over. And of course, a lot of the press is very hostile to him. A lot of the press isn't going to want to frame the story he wants it to frame. So Trump's 6th rule of making decisions: don't let the media frame the decision. Trump wants to frame it himself. And he uses what is an unprecedented and masterful understanding of the media to give himself a kind of optionality on decision-making that his predecessors rarely have enjoyed. And that goes from making the decision on himself, to all the incremental things that go from that, all the incremental choices that follow on. Trump doesn't want negative or harmful judgments, but he knows that the way to mitigate those about his courses of action is to be in charge of framing the thing. He does not have most politicians' typical defensiveness. He doesn't mind being accused of flip-flopping. No decision in his mind is final until he decides it's final. You see that with tariffs. You see that with Putin. He frames every step of the way. So how many decisions has Donald Trump made about what to do about tariffs? It's possible to count. Many, many, right? Many, many. Sometimes in a day, he'll put tariffs on, he'll take them off. How many decisions has he made about what to say about Putin? He's blown over the course of his time in national life more hot than cold on Putin. Now he's blowing particularly cold, but there have been other moments like that. Again, Trump's view is he doesn't let the media frame these decisions, particularly when it's a change. He frames it. It doesn't always win. Sometimes the media pushes back and frames it another way. But Trump's always thinking about, how do I frame the decision? Using social media, using press conferences, using other methods to frame the decision. Other presidents consider their job largely within the four walls of, I've made my decision. Go implement it. Go, have my press secretary talk about it. Go have cabinet members talk about it. Trump isn't like that. He decides both what to do and how to do it. And as I said, he doesn't mind changing his mind. And there's something about Trump in the context of this one, don't let the media frame the decision, that you can study it all you want, but it's not clear that other people can get away with it. Now, other politicians change their mind. Other politicians don't tell the truth. When they change their mind, they pretend they haven't. But there's something about Trump, and the only other politician I've covered who plays at this level is Bill Clinton. And you'll hear it all the time. You hear people say, well, how come Trump can get away with this and other people can't? Nobody can answer that question. It's just it's an ineffable, magical thing. And the people who oppose Bill Clinton felt the same people as Trump's adversaries do. It's unfair. But part of it is explainable. Part of it is explicable because Trump thinks about it. He says, again, like him or not, he understands the media and television production better than any president I've ever covered, probably better than anyone ever. And so he frames the decision and he challenges the media to frame it better, stronger, faster on their terms if they don't agree with him, either because they're hostile to him or because he is not telling the truth or he has made a mistake and he's changing because he's made a mistake. Trump just is relentless about it. He's knowledgeable and he's relentless. And as long as he has an opportunity to change his mind and he thinks that's the better course, he will. Okay. Finally, number 7, follows his instincts. And this one you could say runs counter to all most of the other stuff I've listed here in the previous 6 ways Trump makes decisions, because the rest of them are largely about doing things with a method, sometimes with a madness, but always with a method. Following your instincts runs counter to that. It says basically, it doesn't matter who you consult, right? It doesn't matter if you know anything about history. It doesn't matter what the timing of the decision is. It doesn't matter what factors go into it in terms of data. It doesn't matter what implementations there are or what the media's role is. For Trump, what matters is his gut. And that is how he's made a lot of decisions. He does all these other things, but in the end, Trump believes following your instincts is key. Now, other presidents have felt that way at times, but have more doubt. Trump has doubt. And when you talk to people who are around him as he's making big decisions, like with Iran, he's got doubt. Fear may be too strong a word. I would say he's quite concerned about making a fateful decision, like the Iran decision, bombing Iran. Iran might have launched a missile and hit U.S. Americans. Iran might have unleashed terror cells in the United States. There were a lot of risks involved in that decision. And Trump doesn't like risk, doesn't like errors. He certainly doesn't want to make a bad decision as president. He wants to make good decisions. But he believes in his instincts in the end. And I've said this before about Trump, and it fits in this context perfectly. He has extraordinary instincts about human beings, and he's very at peace when he makes a decision. Other presidents I've covered sometimes will agonize a little bit more. When Trump decides, in the end, takes in all the data, all the consultation, all the planning, but in the end, when he makes a final decision, and again, it's often at the very last minute or beyond what a normal president would say is the last minute, if his instincts tell him to do A and not B, he's largely at peace with that. And his focus it moves from self-doubt, oh my goodness, should I have done B? Maybe I should have done B. He moves off of that typically. And his focus is on, all right, implementation. We're doing A, let's get it done. And there's a good and bad about having all this decision-making so concentrated in one person, right? The bad of it is there may be people who know more than Trump, The bad of it is Trump can only do so much. Trump can't fly ahead of his trip and advance the thing himself, right? He has to rely on other people, and so much of it comes from him. The good of it is it's all integrated in one man. It's all integrated in a single brain of somebody who has extraordinary judgment, extraordinary instincts. Now that he's in the, in his fifth year in the job, extraordinary experience about how to be a decider as president, and having it all concentrated in one guy allows there to be kind of a unified sense of how to get things done, a through line of what are the factors I'm going to use to decide? When am I going to decide? Now that I've decided, how are we going to implement it? How are we going to frame this for the public through the media and through social media? It's an extraordinary array. And I've thought, as I was doing reporting for this, how dissimilar is this from his predecessors? And the presidents I've covered, both Bushes, Clinton, Obama, Biden. How different is it? And my answer is it's pretty different. There are elements that match the others, but Trump is extremely aware from his time as a business person the importance of making decisions when they're ripe, making them well, and following through. And you think about the big decisions he's made as president. Now, a lot of them, tens of millions of Americans agree with the actual decisions. They don't like what he decided. But if the standard you're judging him by in the first instance is, did Trump make a decision that he liked, and did it work out well from his point of view, not from the point of view of people who disagree with his politics? And then the question is, did it make America better? The verdict on the second one is not in yet, right? We're going to have to see, not just at the end of his 4 years, but probably in some cases years down the road. But does he get what he wants? Did he do at least some damage to Iran's nuclear capability? Did he pass a reconciliation bill that fulfilled a lot of his campaign promises? The answer is yes. And I will go back continually and look at every big decision he makes, and including ones he's made in the past. We don't really know yet what the results are, but all the ones going forward, and say, almost always, they're reflective of these 7 principles that Trump uses to make decisions, and they serve him well from his point of view. 7 rules for making decisions that make Trump different than other presidents, and which, as I said, from his point of view, serves him well. He is a confident decision maker. The process itself can be chaotic. There are times when, in all of his consultations, he expresses some doubt. He's working it. And he's getting to the point where he feels comfortable making the decision. And as I said, Trump's timeline is different than everybody else's. So regularly people say, well, what's he going to do about X, or what's he going to do about Y? Tariffs, every day now for weeks. And the answer is he's going to do a lot of things. No decision is final. And Trump will make decisions serially until he gets to the point where he's happy with how it ends or the clock runs out.